Living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
Whether you're caring for a loved one or helping a friend, being a caregiver can be mentally and physically exhausting. With so much focus on giving, caregivers often forget to care for themselves. Today's show is dedicated to helping caregivers so they can be strong for the ones they are assisting. Welcome to this episode of Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Janet Whitmoyer, your host. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I would like to introduce my first guest on today's show, Cindy Stevick. Cindy has been involved in caregiver support groups for more than 30 years and currently facilitates the Helena Alzheimer's Family Support Group. Cindy, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Good. I'm glad to have you. And the first thing I'd like to start off with is if you could tell us what are some of the qualities that make a really great caregiver?
Well, for a caregiver, patience, understanding, being able to deal with the issues that you deal with as a caregiver. And I think primarily, since I work with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, if the people that are caregivers can get a grasp on what the disease is, they can more easily understand the behaviors that they're dealing with. Because those behaviors, if you don't understand the disease, they're tugging at your heartstrings. So for a caregiver to know what they're dealing with, that's kind of a hard task in the beginning, but to move forward with that and to realize that it's a disease, to really truly realize that it's a disease. Also with dementia, that person's reality, the patient, their reality is not necessarily what our reality is. So understanding that is critical for a caregiver to be able to work with the person, to be able to really understand.
That's really important to know so that you can understand a little bit more by understanding the disease.
Right, right.
Being a caregiver can be challenging, and so what would you say are the most important things that a caregiver should do to actually take care of themselves? Wow.
You know, caregivers oftentimes don't even realize that they need to take care of themselves because they relinquish the right to care to that person that they're taking care of, and they really have no needs. So they've got to realize that in order to be a good caregiver, they need to take care of themselves, eat, sleep, be socially active. How do you do that when you're stuck in the house with somebody that you're caring for? To be physically active and to keep their brain active, to continue to do things that help their brain to be active, doing puzzles, whatever, the Sudoku puzzles, people love doing those. So I always hand those out to my support group people, keeping their brain active. Also, for a caregiver to know that not to beat up on themselves. If they lose patience, it's okay. That's normal. You're human. You're totally human. I think that caregiver stress is something, I think we're going to talk about that in a minute.
The importance of them being upbeat and positive. Can you talk about that aspect of it?
Yes, I definitely can. Caregivers being positive is a difficult task for them because they're in this situation that they never ever expected they would be in, especially if they're a spousal caregiver. So one of the things that my mom dealt with, my mom was the caregiver for my father. She realized that there were things that she could start to focus on that were actually positives. They were actually things that could give her joy rather than being frustrating. So some of the behaviors that he did that were repetitive behaviors that would drive her crazy, later on she was able to say, you know, those are really funny. And she knew that in the support group she could laugh or she could cry, and together we could make it through. So being able to pick out things that create those moments of joy that you can grasp onto and take a hold of.
Well, and when you talked about the funny part, that kind of triggered me that being a caregiver is obviously very stressful.
Really
Laughter
stressful.
and humor, I imagine, are pieces that can help relieve that stress. Are there other things that you can tell people that might be able to help a caregiver relieve the stress they're feeling?
I always talk to the caregivers in the support group about, number one, identifying where in their body or what in their activity points out that there is stress. I mean, for me, it's that pain between the shoulder blades. For other people, it might be going and raiding the refrigerator all the time. So identifying, number one, where do you feel it in your body? Number two, how can you relieve that? What can you do to take that away? So I have them really focus on what revitalizes their spirit. For some people, it might be playing the piano. Others, it might be going for a walk. Other people, it might be listening to music. So how can we, number one, we're going to listen to music in the home, but what if we can get out of the house? How can we relieve that stress to revitalize our spirit? Because when you can come back to that person that you love, that you're caring for, if you can be refreshed and patient, you're a gift to them. Without being refreshed, that gift is gone.
Well, that is perfect information to know. I have one last question for you, Cindy, and I wanted to talk just quickly about support groups. Can you tell us what some things people can learn from if they actually get engaged in a support group?
Right. Excuse me. The support groups teach people a lot of things. I mean, you can go from learning about, how to get an appropriate diagnosis to dealing with urinary incontinence. But in the support group, number one, we learn that it's okay to share what you're dealing with. The people in the support group know what you're going through. They know what, they're the people that really truly understand. What my mom said was most important to her was that she could listen to people talking about issues that they were dealing with, but once Dad started doing those, she knew it was the disease. It wasn't something she was doing.
Great information, Cindy. I'd like to thank you for being with us. And stay tuned, we'll learn more tips on how caregivers can take care of themselves right after the break.